This is the story of Air France Flight 447. On May 1st, 2009, an Air France Airbus AA330 was flying from Rio de Janeiro to Paris. The plane had 228 passengers and 12 crew members on board. The captain was 54 years old and had 32,000 hours of flight experience. The first officer was 37 and had 6,700 hours. Together, they had flown this Airbus 330 more than 1,000 times. So needless to say, they were very familiar with the aircraft. As the pilots flew the plane over the Atlantic, they decided to make a small detour so they could avoid some really bad weather. And as they flew through the clouds, the pilots turned on the autopilot system to help them keep the plane stable. As the plane leveled off at 37,000 feet, the pilots engaged the alternate law. This is basically the second part of the autopilot, where the computer takes control of the plane to keep it in a safe flight condition. But for some reason, the computer was not happy. It started sending erroneous signals to the plane's control surfaces. The pilots noticed this and immediately took control of the plane back. They then reset the autopilot and the plane was stable again. But the pilots kept getting these warnings. The pilots expected that the warnings would stop after they passed through the weather, but they didn't, and soon their worst nightmare became a reality. At 2:04 a.m., the data showed that the plane pitched up, possibly due to the computer trying to correct a perceived nose-down situation. This caused the plane to go from 37,000 feet to 32,000 feet in just 2.5 minutes. The pilots knew that they had to do something or the plane might stall. So they put the engines into maximum power and the plane slowly started to climb again, but they were running out of time. At 2:06 a.m., the plane hit the ocean. The last data showed that the plane was at 27,000 feet and descending at 700 feet per minute. The ocean at this point was 12,000 feet below them, so there was no way that they were going to make it. The next morning, a search plane found some debris in the water, but no sign of the plane or the people on board. Over the next few days, 54 bodies were recovered from the water along with 136 pieces of debris. The French government launched an investigation to find out what happened to Flight 447. Now, up until this point, the investigation was going nowhere. That was until they found the flight data recorder. This device records all the important data during a flight, and it can be used to recreate the whole flight in a computer. When they plugged the flight data recorder into the computer, they saw that the sensors on the plane were giving erratic signals, just like they suspected. But there was one thing that they didn't expect. They found out that the autopilot system had disengaged about 3 minutes before the crash. But here's the thing, the pilots never turned off the autopilot. This meant that the autopilot had turned itself off. Why did it turn itself off? Well, that's where things get interesting. When you fly an Airbus plane, there are 4 main computers that control the plane. But when you engage the autopilot system, the control is taken away from the pilots and given to one of these computers. But this computer doesn't work alone. It has a little helper called the Navigation and Flight Control, or NCCU. Basically, this unit gets information from the other computers and decides which information the autopilot computer should use. In simple terms, it's basically the boss. Now, if this unit detects that there is a problem with any of the computers, it will remove that computer from the equation and give the other computers more power. In the case of Flight 447, the NCCU detected a problem with 2 of the computers and disabled them. This left only 2 computers working, which was enough to keep the plane airborne. But here's the thing, the NCCU should have disabled the autopilot system when it did this. But it didn't, and this is why the pilots lost control of the plane. The plane was essentially being controlled by 2 computers that were not authorized to do so. But why did the computers fail? Well, it turns out that the sensors on the plane were getting some erroneous signals. These signals messed with the computers and caused them to fail. But why were the sensors getting these signals in the first place? Well, that's still a mystery. Some people believe that the angle of attack sensor was picking up its own exhaust and that what caused it to malfunction. Others believe that there was an electrical problem on board the plane. Whatever the reason, the malfunctioning sensors sent the computers down a path of chaos, a path that would eventually lead to the destruction of the plane. What do you think caused the sensors to malfunction? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching this episode. If you like the videos that I make, do consider liking and subscribing. It will really help us grow. I will catch you guys next time. Stay safe.